In this lesson, we'll learn how to draw the eye from the side view. So in the previous lesson, we drew the eye from the front view. And we did this by taking that sclera, or that eyeball, in its front view state, meaning that we see the iris and the pupil from directly head on. And on top of that information, we drew the upper and lower eyelids. And so the end result is what you would want to see if you were drawing the human head from the front view. Okay, and so it's the design and how we basically applied the upper and lower lids that really kind of gave us the eye and the way that we'd really want to define it from the front view. And it's also important to mention that everyone's eyes are different. You're going to see a lot of variation if you looked at a lot of different people's eyes. The same can be said about ears, noses, and mouths, but the overall construction is pretty universal. Okay, so now we want to focus on the eye from the side view. This is where we can really start to show you the cornea and how it sets on the eye. Right now we're only alluding to it by this little specular highlight. Okay, but before we jump onto that, I do want to mention that I made sure to separate the bridge line right there for the nose, the eyebrow, and even the tear duct. I just had them on separate layers. I mistakenly drew them on the lids layer. So if you just want to focus on just looking at the lids, you can. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So let's go ahead, and we got a new layer here called eye side, just starting with another, again, spherical shape. And so we could start by thinking about, okay, what does the iris look like? If you reflect back to lesson 2, okay, we talked about if the eye turns, that circular form that we have for the iris is going to appear more oval, depending on the angle which it is turning. Same thing can be said for the pupil as well. Okay, so something more like that. Okay. All right, so now we want to think about the lids of the eye and how that comes over. So again, I want that upper lid to kind of cover maybe just the top part of that iris right there. Again, thinking about this just from a relaxed state. And again, I'm thinking about the thickness as well. Okay, these are not paper-thin pieces of flesh. So you want to kind of think about that thickness. So just dropping in that extra line right there. So this would be our upper eyelid. Okay, and then it kind of connects into the tissue that we have right there beneath our eyebrow, above our eyelid. Okay, so it would kind of come up like that. And then we have the lower eyelid. And the lower eyelid, as I've already alluded to in the previous lesson, it doesn't stick out as far as the upper eyelid. And the upper eyelid really kind of protects our eye in a sense, because, you know, if you got something, any kind of, you know, dust or something or anything kind of raining down, it just kind of sticks out just far enough to kind of protect it. Okay, so now this is where we can talk about the cornea. So the cornea is kind of it's like a transparent mound that sticks out above the iris right here. Okay, so just kind of working that in. So it's kind of a little protrusion or mound, but it's completely transparent. So just kind of showing you what that looks like. We can kind of maybe start to erase away some of this information right here, just so you can kind of start to get a sense of what that looks like a little bit more clearly. And I'll kind of define that just a little bit better there. So again, just kind of a little transparent mound. So when you draw from your eye from the side view, you don't want to draw the iris and the pupil directly on the edge here of, you know, the line that you have coming down. That's the cornea. So the cornea is that transparent film. You don't want to place that your pupil right here on top of that. It would just look weird. Okay, so you want to think about that. So the cornea, again, it's transparent. It's convex. Okay, so convex, this being the front of the cornea, as opposed to concave, where it would, if it were concave, it would be sunken in. Okay, so just think about that. Now, from a technical standpoint, the iris itself is convex if you look in like an anatomy book. But I like to kind of do a little bit of a visual cheat where we draw it more concave too, so you just see more of that eye. Okay, so it's just a little bit more appealing. Okay, so if you're starting to render this, shade it, you might want to have kind of a little bit of a highlight that kind of comes across right here, to kind of show that a little bit of a shine or something, a little bit of reflectiveness that you get from the cornea. Okay, but we're going to get into actually shading the eye here later on, so you can really get a sense of these forms just a lot more clearly, and just how the eye sits on the face, as some of the surrounding information around the eye, some different recesses and different areas of flesh, and how that information just kind of rolls around. Okay. And so just to kind of reiterate with the upper and lower lids, you should kind of have maybe perhaps kind of a 45-degree angle from the furthest point of the upper lid to the furthest point of the lower lid. I would say that would be pretty good. But again, the upper lid just sticks out a lot further than the lower lid. So if your lower lid's way out here and this one's in too close, then it's probably not going to look as good as you would really want it to. All right, so in our next lesson, we'll go ahead and draw the eye from a 3/4 view. And then following that lesson, we're going to get into actually shading the eye. We're going to go back to our front view. We'll spend a couple of lessons doing that, just so you can start to really see the form of the eye more three-dimensionally by working in some values, and really showing these different forms more three-dimensionally just by working in some darks and lights. So stick around, and we'll continue on in our next lesson.